Today we're going to talk about the last poem that you read by E.E. Cummings. It is found on page 598. And when you unscramble that anagram, that scrambled up group of letters that's really a word, when you unscramble it, you will have the word grasshopper. So let's talk about this poem just quickly. First of all, in order to be able to fully understand the poem, you are going to have to do some unscrambling and some rearranging, some omitting of the parentheses. You're going to have to rewrite this. So look at the head note on page 598 and also the directions found in question number 5 on page 599 to give you some directions on how to unscramble this poem. Now, this is where I hope that you're listening to this because I forgot to put 598. The head note, that's where that's located. So hopefully you are listening and you can get the whole picture of what I want you to do here. So I'm not going to just unscramble it for you. If you just look at the directions, you'll be able to unscramble it for yourself. And worst case scenario, if you can't figure it out, you can find it online. All right, but obviously for the very beginning of this poem, and if you read the whole poem, remember that a lot of times, this isn't a sonnet, but a lot of times the last lines of poems gives some kind of a hint. And so indeed, finally in the last line of the poem, the word is unscrambled to be grasshopper. Okay, so I want you to think about why. Why did Cummings decide to scramble the word grasshopper and then jumble up other words by the use of parentheses where we already learned about what parentheses should do. Why does he do these things? Well, think of a grasshopper landing and then gathering itself for the next jump and then landing. Think of the movement of a grasshopper. It is extremely sporadic. They don't really know exactly where they're going to land, probably, right? So again, I already said this, but just so that you have this word down, the scrambling of the letters is called an anagram. Now, here's another question for you. What two parts of speech does Cummings use the word leap as? And you might at first glance not even see leap, but if you look carefully and if you uncapitalize random capitalized letters, you'll see that it kind of descends in the middle of the poem down the page. And there's an exclamation point preceding the P in the word leap. But in any case, once you unscramble this, I'm kind of giving you the answers in advance here just because we have to get through this poem today. But you'll find that it's being used not just as a verb. You can definitely sense the use of it as a verb in the poem, but it's also truly a noun because it has the word the right in front of it. And so that's interesting that he does that with that particular word. He uses it as if it could be a noun, like it's this event, the leap. All right, what do the parentheses do besides make everything confusing? Well, they create a jumbled feeling of that movement. This whole poem, the look of it, the typography, which means the placement of the words and the capitalization and all of that on the page, all of that just gives that sense of sort of sporadic movement, ongoing movement of a grasshopper, unpredictable movement. And so what do the placements of the letters do? Well, the same, right? So it shows the grasshopper again, settling himself, jumping, jostled, and then resettling itself or himself. And so look at the altered conventions. I just named a few, and if you really look closely, you'll see so many more. I mean, we've got seemingly no reasoning behind the capitalization that's used. The punctuation is everywhere. Like I said, there's an exclamation point in the middle of the word leap, and then there's a colon after the word the in the leap. We wouldn't put a colon there, right? At the end of it, there's a semicolon, no period, just a semicolon to conclude this piece. And so this disregard gives the reader a sense of that sporadic movement again, and also just the ongoing. The poem doesn't end. There's a semicolon to conclude it. And that's going to be the movement of the grasshopper, right? It's going to continue. It's not going to stop. Okay, so after you reorganize it and read it, you'll just see a beautiful description of a grasshopper's movement. And also, if you are artistically minded, Cummings means for there to be a picture of a grasshopper in these words. You should be able to, in the middle of it, you should be able to picture the shape of a grasshopper, is what I'm trying to say. Okay, now you might not see it. It depends on how your brain is wired. You might say, no, I just see a bunch of words and they're all over the place. And that is what I want you to do today. At the top of critical thinking is evaluating, or that's close to the top of all of this sort of in learning and in thinking. There's different sort of steps. I feel like I'm going to go off on a rabbit trail about that right now, and I don't want to, okay? But somewhere near the top is the ability to evaluate. You have to form your own opinions sometimes. There are certain non-negotiable truths that we believe, and those are set down by God, okay? But outside of those, and especially in the world of literature and poetry, there are some evaluations that you as a reader get to make. Now, you can never make an evaluation and just be like, well, I don't like to read, so this is dumb. That's not an intelligent evaluation. Or even the opposite of that. Well, I just love to read, so I like this because I like to read. That's not a true evaluation either. Okay, and so I'm going to try to lead you into a true evaluation of this work, of Cummings' poems and his poetry altogether, the ones that you read. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to evaluate Cummings' non-conventional capitalization and punctuation, his coined words, and his typography. In other words, I want you to evaluate how Cummings writes a poem. All of the attributes that belong to his writing a poem. And I want you to answer this question today. Do you find his techniques effective or not? Do you find them distracting or delightful? And so do you see how you can now be a person who can evaluate this poem and Cummings' work? We're going to use this particular poem. You could use, honestly, you could use the other ones, but this one is the most extreme, right, that we see in our book. So let's use this one. All right. Now, in my mind, it keeps jumping into the forefront here that I said you were going to identify theme. Upon further consideration, this is not the best place for me to have you identifying theme. Yes, there is theme in his work, but I am going to end this learning on Cummings and a postmodern poet with this evaluation, and we are going to do theme next. Okay, as a teacher, I needed to make that decision. So anyway, back to my question. Sorry for that little rabbit trail. That's what I want you to do. You're going to need to give an example from the work, something in there. Maybe your example is going to be based around what he does with punctuation. Maybe you love it. Maybe you think it's delightful that there is an exclamation point right in the middle of leap. I kind of think that's interesting, actually, although I tend to be wired very like, I know my grammar rules and I feel like everybody should be applying them, so I don't know. I'd have to really consider what my answer would be for this. But you have to give examples in the work. So I just gave you an example of giving an example. You could talk about his use of punctuation to defend your answer, whether you find it distracting or delightful. whether you think his techniques are effective or not. And you will be in good company either way, because remember, I briefly mentioned that there were some in his time period that greatly rejected his approach, and then others that kind of embraced it, and some that tried to actually mimic it or reproduce it in their own work. So here is just, I shouldn't have to do this, but I think it might be helpful to some of you, so I'm going to do it. Here's how the makeup of your paragraph should be. Your topic sentence should be your statement, your answer. Do not start it, my friends, please, with the first person pronoun I think. No, just start it as if the world should think this way. Okay, so in other words, you would say, Cummings' use of unconventional language is effective in whatever you want to say, in driving meaning in his work, in creating a work of art with his poetry, whatever you want to say. Or maybe you could say Cummings' rejection of language conventions makes his poetry distracting and unenjoyable. Whatever it is that you want to say. But you see, you're not going to say, I think that. You're going to start with a strong, bold, authoritative statement, because then your next sentence is going to give the textual evidence. You're going to support that. Maybe you're going to talk about how absolutely there is no reason for there to be a period, you know, I'm not going to give away all the answers, but once you unscramble this, look at where the punctuation is placed and see what you need to do with that. Okay, so give your textual evidence though in the next sentence, and then this is where I lose some of you. I need 2 more sentences of commentary. I need you to continue to support why is that a problem, or why is that delightful, whatever it is that you're saying. I need you to keep going and really round out your whole answer and support that evidence with your own writing. And then you should have a clincher sentence that sums it all up. And that is my summary right here. I'm done. I want you to go and do this today. I will be available online some today, but I do have some IEP meetings that I have to attend. So I will see what I can do in terms of answering you as needed. Thank you for your kind attention. Enjoy this assignment. If you need help figuring out how to unscramble it after you've tried yourself, you know, reach out to some of your classmates then. Okay, I'm not evaluating your ability to unscramble this thing. So, but I just want you to try, because it's part of the experience of reading this poem. This poem was constructed for each individual to get meaning from the whole process, right? And part of the process is in scrambling it. You already have hints on page 598 in the head note, and on number 5 on page 599, right? So use the hints, but reach out to me. But if you can't get a hold of me, then reach out to some of your classmates. You have some early risers that will have this done by the time you listen to this. So have a good day. Don't worry about this, guys. Don't panic about this, please. I know that for some of you, it's not going to be easy. Some of you, it's going to be incredibly simple. I mean, everybody's going to be different about this, but don't panic about it. It is not going to make or break your grade. Just give it a shot. And remember, there's no right answer on this. There's only the ability to be able to support your answer with textual evidence. So keep that in mind. Thanks for listening. Bye.